Okay, everyone. Thanks so much. I think we're going to get started. So, hello, how's everyone doing? Welcome to our 2024 Year in Review webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so pleased to have you here today, and we're looking forward to the opportunity to celebrate our successes together. I feel deep gratitude to see so many supportive faces here, especially on a Friday afternoon. Your time is valuable, and I appreciate you choosing to share it with us today. So, in case you didn't know, my name is Shai, and I'm the Communications and Engagement Manager here at SkyTruth, and I'll be serving as your moderator today. We've got a lot to cover, so we'll try to keep things tight. A few housekeeping items before we begin. Your microphone and camera will be automatically disabled for this webinar, so we ask that you please type any questions or comments that you might have. We'll be hosting a moderated Q&A at the end, so there's a Q&A button in the bottom tools near our images, so please use that to submit any questions not in the chat. We'll be able to ensure that we answer all of them at that using that function. We'll aim to answer as many of those questions as possible live. However, if we can't, we will be reaching out to you afterwards. If you have a question for a specific staff member, please also indicate that in your question. So now I'm going to hand it off to John, who's going to kick things off with some highlights from 2024.
Thank you, Shai, and hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us today. I'm John Amos, the founder and CEO of SkyTruth. We are a nonprofit conservation technology organization that harnesses the view from space to shine a light on environmental issues worldwide. We use images and other data about planet Earth collected from orbiting satellites to make environmental problems visible, measurable, and most importantly, actionable. And we eagerly take advantage of powerful data handling technologies, including artificial intelligence techniques like machine learning and computer vision, to extend the reach and impact of our small but mighty team. Our headquarters is located in beautiful Little Shepherdstown, West Virginia, but our team is scattered throughout the US, and the work we do addresses global issues with a particular emphasis on climate change and biodiversity conservation. SkyTruth has been in action since 2001, using satellite images and data to illustrate the impacts of coal mining, oil and gas drilling, industrial fishing, and other extractive operations on land and sea that degrade habitats, disrupt ecosystems, and pose threats to the health and well-being of human communities around the world. 2024 was a very big year for us. We added 5 new positions to the team, growing to a full-time staff of 20, plus 4 talented interns. We stepped out onto the international stage, making presentations and hosting discussions at major international conferences, including the Our Ocean Conference in Athens and the COP16 Biodiversity Conference in Colombia. Our projects generated major international media coverage. Just one of our reports on oil pollution in the Coral Triangle biodiversity hotspot was covered by 84 media outlets worldwide, reaching a total audience of nearly 800 million. We made major additions and improvements to our growing suite of tools, data, and other products that we continue to make available at no cost to environmental advocates, scientists, governments, and journalists. We'll hear more about these accomplishments and get a taste for what's coming from the SkyTruth team in 2025 right now. So I'll step aside and turn it over to SkyTruth's Chief Technology Officer, Jason Schatz.
Thanks, John. Like John said, I'm Jason, CTO at SkyTruth, and on the tech side, last year we focused on 3 main areas. So first one was monitoring ocean pollution. Second, tracking global biodiversity protection. And then last but not least, we upgraded a bunch of environmental watchdog tools that we provide to the public for free. So I'll give a high-level intro of what we've been working on, and then I'll hand it off to the team for a few more details. So first up is our ocean work. So this includes a couple different programs, Open Ocean and Cerulean. And on the open ocean side, this is part of a 5-year collaboration with Global Fishing Watch to map and monitor all human activity at sea. And this includes monitoring fishing, oil pollution, climate pollution, oil smuggling, and a host of other activities. And this year we focused on a couple key areas. So mapping global offshore oil and gas infrastructure with Global Fishing Watch, and you can see an image from that work there on the left, and also monitoring marine oil pollution around the world with our Cerulean application, which you can see there on the right. And Chris is going to talk more about this in a few minutes. And then next up is our work on global biodiversity protection tracking. So just to get everybody oriented, the 30 by 30 initiative is a global commitment that 190 countries have signed to protect 30% of their lands and waters by 2030. It's a very ambitious target. And with 2030 approaching pretty quickly, it raises a couple questions like, are we on track to hit those 30% protection targets? Where are we falling short in the world? And most of all, are those protections actually effective for biodiversity? So those are some very basic questions, but unless you know exactly where to go, it's a little hard to find answers. So last year we built this application, which you can see some screenshots of on this slide. So we built this, which we call the 30 by 30 progress tracker, and it's designed to provide very easy to understand independent tracking of national and global progress toward the 30 by 30 goal. And in 2024, we reached two big milestones. In April, we launched the Marine Protection Tracker, which shows progress on the ocean side. And in October, we added the Terrestrial Protection Tracker. So now it's possible to track protection in the oceans and on land in one location. But like I mentioned, tracking expansion of protected areas isn't quite enough. We also need to know if those protections are being effective. So the 30 by 30 tracker already tracks marine protected area effectiveness through our data partnerships with Marine Conservation Institute and Protected Seas. But as of now, no data like that exists for terrestrial protected areas. So in this coming year, in 2025, one of our big goals is to build a system for tracking terrestrial protected area effectiveness so we can just really meaningfully track global progress toward 30 by 30 for the next 5 years. And then finally, we last year we breathed some new life into some of SkyTruth's legacy tools. So there were a couple applications that were originally built over a decade ago and are still going strong today. And the first big update was to SkyTruth Monitor, which you can see a screenshot of here on the screen. This used to be called SkyTruth Alerts, and in 2024, we completely modernized and rebranded the application. And to give you a sense of what it does, it's a lightweight system we've developed to support conservation organizations, journalists, and really anyone who wants quick, easy access to satellite imagery and environmental data. So Monitor really provides free environmental watchdog tools to anyone so they can track threats and changes to their local environment without having to be an expert or pay any kind of subscription fee. And on this slide, you can see a recent example of this is a satellite image of the start of the Palisades fire in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago. And you can view similar satellite imagery like this for any period of time over the last decade or so, anywhere in the world, again, completely for free. And last year, Monitor supported quite a number of environmental news stories and investigations about environmental hazards all over the world. And it also powered deforestation protection programs in Peru, which Eric's going to talk more about shortly. And then finally, we also rebuilt SkyTruth's global gas flaring maps, which you can see here. And these show the ongoing footprint of natural gas flaring and wastes all around the world. And this is going to be a really critical tool as we turn our focus to stopping methane waste and emissions this year and beyond. So that's my quick tour of our tech work. I'm really proud of what we've done this year. And with that, I will hand it off to Chris.
Hello. Hey there. I'm Chris Moreau. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And thanks, Jason. I'm SkyTruth's Principal Product Manager, where I lead product strategy and user research. I'm one of the folks that started this summer and super excited to be here. Today, I want to share some of our most exciting tech breakthroughs we've made in the past year with a focus on our ocean products. These tools are helping us protect seas faster and smarter at a scale most of us never thought possible. And here, let's start with Cerulean. This is our marquee oil pollution detection tool. In 2024, Cerulean moved out of beta and into a full launch. And let me tell you, usage has been climbing across the globe. We've seen strong responses from almost every country. Cerulean uses AI to analyze satellite imagery and spot oil pollution. What's amazing is that it works about 100 times more efficiently than a human reviewer, and it keeps getting better. That's what you're seeing here. All of the orange dots on the global map are detected oil slicks, and when you start to zoom in, you can see patterns of where those are really cropping up in hot spots around the world. Every time our engineering team makes an update and a new release to this product on a rolling basis, it means higher accuracy, more high quality detections, and greater transparency for all of our partners relying on this tool. And what's really inspiring to me about Cerulean is it shows how AI can be a force for good. It's having an environmental watchdog that never sleeps 24/7, and it's catching everything from oil slicks from leaking offshore oil platforms to ships illegally dumping waste oil in marine protected areas. Uh, it also helps us with polluter accountability. So what you're looking at here, we're looking at an image from off the coast of Spain, and that you can see when the red line goes away, there's a dark streak of oil with a little white dot at the tip. That dot, an algorithm Cerulean's using, we've identified that to be the most likely source of this oil slick. And Cerulean has traced that vessel information back, and can see on the left here the MMSI of that vessel. So that's like a license plate on the water. And this level of transparency is a game changer for a lot of our partners that's empowering them to shine a spotlight on polluters with the data that they need to affect change. But we haven't stopped there. Thanks to the Open Ocean grant that Jason mentioned earlier, we partnered with Global Fishing Watch extensively in the last year to create something pretty groundbreaking. It's the world's first public map of offshore oil infrastructure. It was published in Nature early in 2024, and now Cerulean is putting that data to work, tracking pollution incidents from these rigs like we've never been able to do before. We've already identified quite a number of chronic offenders from this data. Why is this important? For decades, oil platforms and more recently, floating production facilities have been mostly operating out of sight. Many likely got away with polluting the same ecosystems over and over, because as you can imagine, unlike ships, structures don't move, so it makes them a persistent threat to local wildlife and human health in communities in coastal areas nearby. One hidden problem we're working on revealing now includes the growing use of these floating offshore production facilities. We're looking at one on the left here. They're often made from former tankers that are commonly used to support drilling for oil further offshore as nearshore oil wells become more depleted over time. So this example, the Princess Oweni, was built in 1975. You can see that she is showing her age a bit here. Formerly a tanker, now converted, anchored in place for oil production purposes off the coast of Nigeria. And you can see on the right, we've linked this structure to 12 pollution incidents detected just in the last 18 months. So those are those yellow shapes you're seeing on the right. So this work's already helping us name some of the worst offenders, and a full global analysis is coming soon. Stay tuned for more on that from my colleague Christian in a couple minutes. It's lead author. And identifying the problem's the first step to fixing it, so we're now well equipped to do so. And at SkyTruth, we're not only creating new and innovative tools, we're also using them to help make real change. Cerulean's helping tackle pollution globally, but we're also working with regional and local partners to raise awareness in the areas most affected. So where exactly? Here are two regional reports we helped write and author in 2024, both in the Mediterranean and the Coral Triangle, Southeast Asia. And these reports have sparked media coverage and raised awareness among citizens and policymakers on shores nearby these hotspots for pollution. So it's not just data, it's also action. And with that, I'll hand it off to my colleague Christian to share more about what is next on our horizon for 2025. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christian, SkyTruth's geospatial engineer, and I'm going to be giving you a brief rundown about some of the really exciting work that we have planned this year. Get a little bit about what's coming up for marine projects for both open ocean and Cerulean, and then an overview of some of the things that we have planned on land as well. So one of the things, as Chris mentioned, that we're very excited about this year is the release of this a white paper which analyzes a suite of climate impacts that are associated with the offshore oil and gas industry. This report is going to be examining the life cycle and patterns that are associated with offshore oil and gas infrastructure, which we can see mapped here. And what we're looking at are issues such as oil pollution events that have been associated with these vessels as they've been detected by Cerulean. We're also looking at greenhouse gas emissions from the vessels that interact with and service this infrastructure. And that's data that comes to us from our partners at Global Fishing Watch and University of California, Santa Barbara. And we're also looking at methane flaring, which is associated with the operation of these facilities to better get a sense of what their sort of day-to-day operations are like. And one of the things that we're excited to highlight about this is that the report will also include sort of the first list of top polluting structures at sea. We plan to release the white paper early Q2 this year, but we're already working on expanding our analyses to measure greenhouse gas emissions that are produced by the offshore structures during their operation. The Rocky Mountain Institute and Climate Trace are providing us with data, which we can see graphed here. And what this graph is showing us are, if we're going to look at the top two-thirds of the graph, really, this is trends in CO2 production for all offshore energy sources from 2015 to 2023. And we see on the top 10 countries with the highest emissions are plotted on that black to yellow gradient, while the emissions for all other countries is that gray bar at the top. Now, if we take a look at sort of the bottom third, this is showing us trends in CO2 emitted. And interestingly, but disturbingly, what we see is that emissions for top polluting nations are actually on the rise, as indicated by the blue line, while even though emissions for all other countries are decreasing. Now, currently, this data is being provided to us in an aggregated form, so we get it for like whole countries and their offshore fields. And one of the things that we plan to do this year is really dig into that to assess how these emissions relate to specific platforms and specific oil fields to help illustrate the impacts that individual sources have. Shifting gears slightly to talk about some of the new features that are coming to Cerulean. As we're all hopefully aware by now, Cerulean is an incredibly powerful tool, not only for monitoring threats to marine ecosystems, but also for shining a light on the parties that are responsible for pollution events. And to that end, we're adding a lot of new functionality, which is going to make it easier for users to search for vessels of interest based on identifying characteristics like MMSI. And we're also adding tags to our data set that will allow folks to identify specific vessel types that they're interested in exploring or investigating in more detail. We're also adding a new feature called polluter profiles, which will allow users to take a closer look into individual vessels that have been identified as repeat polluters. And these profiles are being designed to support journalists and storytellers generally and provide additional information about vessels, including color photos of the ships as available, information about sanction lists the vessel may be on, and other details about the vessel's pollution history and the areas that have been affected by those pollution events. Now, unfortunately, not every vessel on the ocean is being transparent about who they are. And in some cases, they intentionally obfuscate their identity by turning off their AIS transponder. Cerulean currently relies on AIS broadcast to match slicks like the one that we see here to the vessels which are their likely sources. But when the vessel isn't broadcasting AIS, it's difficult to associate the slick with the vessel responsible, like this one we see here in the inset map. So our team is working on new algorithms which are able to associate the slicks like the one we just saw with that vessel that seems to be its source, even though it isn't broadcasting. And even though AIS provides us with a wealth of information about the vessels, such as their name and their length, we're still able to determine some characteristics based on the image we see it in. And understanding where these vessels are, understanding where hotbeds of pollution are, and will help support greater enforcement and protection in areas of concern. And we're working with our partners at Global Fishing Watch to help use this data to track down identities for some of these vessels and try and put names to these polluters. It's not all oceans either. We also have a lot of exciting work planned for on land. One thing that we'll be focusing on this year is making improvements to our 30 by 30 platform, which are designed to monitor threats to biodiversity. And we're doing this by leveraging skills and expertise that our team has developed as we've measured the impacts from practices like mountaintop removal mining and through the long-term ecological recovery from disturbances like this. We're supporting our close partners, Appalachian Voices, by developing an inventory of high wall mining operations across central Appalachia. High walls are essentially cliff faces that are created to extract coal. You can see an aerial image of one here on the left. And they're the most expensive features of mining operations to reclaim. So being able to identify them and to describe characteristics such as length and height is crucial in the evaluation of whether state bonds are effective resources to reclaim these sites in the instances where operators fail to do so. So we're using publicly available digital elevation data. You can see this LiDAR-derived slope image of the same cliff face. And we're using this to extract information and find out where these high walls are located and sharing that information with our partners. This year, we're also going to be working to identify other types of disturbance, such as valley fills, which pose significant risks to watershed health. Overburden from mining, which is removed from mountaintops, is then deposited on streams, and as it weathers, it can leach harmful chemicals into water, threatening both the health of sensitive species as well as neighboring communities. And by pairing elevation data with our annual mining footprints, we can look at sites like the Hobet 21 mine, which we can see here. This is a Landsat image from 1999. Compare it to the landscape that was seen in 2015, and identify the areas which have experienced changes in elevation. So in the context of mountaintop removal mining, areas that see a gain in elevation are likely valley fills, and those are mapped here in blue. And with all of this work that we've got in the pipeline, we're also planning to develop an API which will allow researchers and activists to better incorporate our mining data into their workflows and facilitate both more robust research and provide additional tools for environmental justice campaigns. And with that, I'm very pleased to hand you off to Eric, who's going to be talking to you about how our data is making impacts out in the world.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much, Christian. My name is Eric Teller. I'm SkyTruth's program strategy analyst, and I'm really excited to be talking to you today. I'll do my best to follow up our brilliant technologists who have given you a great overview of some of the innovations that we've developed in the last year. Making this data available for free is already a huge step towards progress on climate change and the environmental crisis. Sometimes, though, just knowing that there's a problem isn't enough. And here on the impact team, our job is to get our data into the hands of people who apply it to make change in those situations. And so on the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about an example about how we've worked with governments and communities to confront illegal activity in the Peruvian Amazon. This work actually started back in 2020 when we received a grant to make a special version of SkyTruth Monitor available to the Peruvian National Park Service and Environmental Police. The purpose of this was to confront illegal gold mining in the Madre de Dios region of the Peruvian Amazon. This is right where the western edge of the Amazon rainforest runs into the Andes Mountains. It's one of the most crucial regions on Earth for biodiversity, but as you can see, it's been invaded to a significant extent by illegal gold miners. All of the yellow and red areas on this map represent alerts of new small-scale gold mining activity that we've been able to send to the Peruvian government. And I want to talk a little bit more about what we do with this. So these agencies collaborate with indigenous communities in the area to patrol an enormous region of really dense rainforest with few roads and very limited resources. They use our alerts from SkyTruth Monitor to allocate their resources more effectively so they can spot illegal mines like the one pictured on the left and shut them down. Our program manager, Bjorn Bergman, recently visited the region, as he does fairly often, to take these pictures and, more importantly, to conduct 2 in-person trainings for environmental police and indigenous and local community land defenders, helping them to use satellite imagery to protect their territories. They've now begun using Monitor for issues beyond just illegal gold mining, spotting things like illegal logging and land clearing for agriculture in the area. And this can also be applied outside the rainforest as well. Just recently, they used Monitor to track and monitor a brush fire near Lake Titicaca in the high Andes. So this capacity building work that we're undertaking with Peruvian officials and local land defenders has applications beyond just the original purpose of this work. And I love this story so much because it illustrates what can be done when we work with governments and communities to get actionable data into the hands of people who can use it. Now I want to share an example of a different kind of partnership. This exemplifies the way we work with advocacy organizations to influence policy around the world. Through Cerulean, we've identified the North Sea in the UK as a region with a significant chronic oil pollution problem, primarily caused by leaking and aging oil extraction infrastructure. Our partners at Oceana UK have used Cerulean to spot chronic leaks from this infrastructure and publicize the results in a few different ways. First, they published a report, which you can see on the left, that details the extent of the problem and highlights some of the legal methods that polluters often use to get away with it. Then they produced a short documentary featuring analysis from our own Cerulean platform. You can see a screenshot of that on the right. It also featured an interview with John, where John was featured alongside members of coastal communities in Scotland to highlight the pervasiveness of chronic oil pollution and its impacts, which have been overlooked for a long time. This demonstrates that not only do fossil fuel extraction operations have the well-known climate impacts of burning of oil downstream, but they also have significant effects on local communities that need to be taken into account when planning projects. This documentary featuring John was screened at the Labour Party conference last year, just after the Labour Party took power in the UK general elections. Now, at this moment, Oceana sensed an opportunity to affect the government's policy on offshore oil and gas with a change in government, and they were able to use our data in that advocacy, which is a fantastic opportunity. And there actually is an exciting update to this story that we learned just this morning from London as we were logging on. A British court has now ruled that the largest recent oil lease sale in the UK, the Rosebank field, was unlawfully issued, and they've overturned the sale. We're really excited to see this, and we hope it means that the tide is turning against offshore oil in the UK, the North Sea, and in other places around the world. We really hope to continue building on that momentum this year and continuing to fight the good fight. So speaking of what's next, I want to turn it back to John for a few closing words on how we'll keep going in 2025.
Wow. Thank you, Eric, for that good news, hot off the presses. It's just so gratifying to see how our work and the work of others using satellite data and technology can help push forward real policy change and real positive impacts for people on the planet. Thank you, SkyTruth team, for sharing your work and insights today. I just have to say personally, I'm so gratified at seeing this, and I never could have imagined when I started SkyTruth more than 20 years ago that we would be able to do this kind of work at this scale, impacting policy and environmental conditions around the world. It's just marvelous, personally. And it may sound like a cliche, but I really believe that a satellite-powered, AI-driven, independent environmental watchdog like SkyTruth is needed now more than ever. I can't sugarcoat it. The most powerful country on earth is now run by a government that is dismissive of science, disdainful of public health and environmental protection, and obsessively driven to double down on oil and gas while dismantling the real progress we've made on transitioning our economy to renewable energy. Well, um, despite this gloomy appraisal, I'm actually quite hopeful. The rest of the world is not going to stand still just because the US federal government is backsliding. Proactive businesses, state and local governments, and many other nations will continue to champion effective climate action and biodiversity protection. And they will need powerful tools, data, and insights to drive their efforts to success. So as we look ahead at 2025 and beyond, SkyTruth's mission remains unwavering. We will continue leveraging technology to expose environmental harms and motivate action to create positive change for people and the planet. So stay tuned for our Cerulean-powered analysis of the world's most polluting vessels and offshore oil platforms coming soon. We will continue to strengthen the 30 by 30 progress tracker so it can serve as a trusted, independent accountability tool for tracking progress in biodiversity protection. And most importantly, ensuring those protections are robust, equitable, and transparent. And by taking full advantage of new satellites from Carbon Mapper and MethaneSat that reveal methane leaks and intentional emissions from oil and gas operations, we intend to help advocates and regulators make this data actionable to ensure the oil industry repairs these harmful leaks. But our tools can't help solve these challenging problems unless they are used. So please go to skytruth.org and take them for a spin. And tell us what we could be doing to make our tools more useful and impactful for you. Do you have thoughts about new technologies we could be using or pressing issues we should tackle? Let us know. We are eager to hear from you. And of course, if you'd like to support SkyTruth's work during this critical time, please go ahead and hit the donate button on our website. With your partnership, we'll continue providing cutting-edge tools to spotlight environmental harms, amplify the solutions, and strengthen the fight for a sustainable future. And now I'll turn it back over to Shai in case there are any questions.
Thanks so much, John, and thanks to everyone for sharing the incredible work of last year and what we've got coming up down the pipeline. And bad word choice. Okay, so we have a few questions that have come through. We're going to go through them. And again, if we don't have time to answer it, we will follow up with you after the webinar. So I'm going to start with a question that we received from Tommy. I'm so sorry if I said your name wrong. The question is, while platforms like Global Fishing Watch and Skylight already incorporate transshipment detection, I'm curious about your monitoring data. Have you found ship-to-ship transfers, whether sanctions, evasion attempts, or legitimate operations, to be a significant source of vessel pollution? And are there future plans to integrate STS detection with slick monitoring to help identify potential pollution sources? So I think maybe Christian would be the best on our team to answer that, if that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're very lucky in that we have such a strong research partnership with Global Fishing Watch. We haven't done any direct analysis of ship-to-ship transfers, but I think it's definitely something we'd be interested in looking into a little more specifically. And we have recently been talking about looking at some evidence of pollution events associated with these transfers in the Laconia Bay near Greece. So I think there's definitely, keep an eye out. I think there's room for that in the future.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Christian. And then looking in the chat, we have a question from Marion about, hi all, do you organize public trainings on how to effectively use your oil spill monitoring solutions? I think maybe Eric, if it's comfortable, would love for you to answer that.
Yeah, I would say that that's a great idea. Maybe we should have a webinar just like this one to train folks on how to use Cerulean. However, we do organize a lot of trainings for groups or organizations who are interested in learning more. So If you want to organize a training, if you have colleagues who you think would be interested in this, please reach out to us and we would be happy to help you make that happen.
Yes, thanks, Eric. And want to agree with that. We are always looking to hear from potential, current, and future users. We have another question from Dan Cogswell. How will SkyTruth make use of the data from satellites doing methane detection? We definitely have quite a few plans in this realm. So I know there are a few people on this call who are good to answer that. Does anyone feel like they want? Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I can start. So, hi, Dan. So we're still exploring exactly where we can use that to have the biggest impact right now. Like John mentioned, environmental regulations, especially around oil and gas, are being rolled back at the federal level. So that may not be the best target for the next couple of years, but there's still opportunities that we're exploring at the state level for state level enforcement, for environmental legal advocacy groups, and just advocacy groups generally at the state and local level to leverage that data. And also, we need to start thinking internationally, like how can the EU start to use that data to fulfill their emerging methane regulations. So ton of opportunity. We've had to make some adjustments given the outcome of the recent election, but we're on it. This is one of our big focus areas for the year.
Great. Thanks so much for answering that. Okay, I think that we do have a few other questions. This one looks like it's for Chris from Julio. I would like to know what opportunities the 2023 BBNJ agreement can bring us and whether SkyTruth can contribute to protect biodiversity in that context.
Sure. Thanks for the question, Julio. The thing about the BBNJ agreement that excites me the most is the opportunity to protect areas of the ocean that are in the high seas outside of any one country's national jurisdiction. This is a great way you could use our 30 by 30 tool. We have, just because each country is responsible for their own EEZ in the ocean, there's still a lot of other ocean out there, and protecting 30% of our oceans is going to take the high seas as well. We do within 30 by 30 have tools like Conservation Builder, where you can scenario plan different ideas for proposed marine protected areas. And I think with the ratification of the BBNJ agreement, we'll be sort of off to a running start to help see how those changes could be realized. So thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. So we have a few anonymous questions here. I'm going to start with, I think, John, you might be the best to answer this. Clearly, we've been talking a lot about changes in the administration and what is coming next. Is SkyTruth's funding or its access to data threatened by this administration?
That is a great question. I'll start with the funding part. As a nonprofit organization, the bulk of our funding actually comes from grants from charitable foundations. We actually don't receive any direct or indirect funding from government agencies at the federal, state, or any other level. So as long as philanthropy remains a viable area of social change, we're comfortable that our funding won't be threatened by this. On the data side, this is something our board members asked us at a recent board meeting if we were concerned about loss of data access. And in the early years of SkyTruth, we relied heavily on U.S. government-funded satellites, specifically the Landsat satellite program. Those satellites two of them are still functioning, collecting imagery. It's a beautiful tool, but actually much of our work over the past several years has migrated over to using data provided by the European Space Agency's Copernicus Earth Observation Program. And they are operating a fleet of satellites with a range of capabilities that we take advantage of. And we're not concerned about changes to the US government impacting European Union and European Space Agency policy and funding. So I'm confident we'll be able to continue to do the work that we've described and the work that we've previewed, and hopeful that the US government will continue to make data available to all sectors of society. Early signs aren't looking great, but I'm hoping people wake up, make a lot of noise, and ensure that there's public transparency into all aspects of how our government is working.
Thanks so much for sharing that, John. I appreciate it. So actually, one of these questions is asked by a couple of folks really about how to connect with SkyTruth, how to partner with SkyTruth. And I'd love to pass this off to Eric to share a bit more.
Sure. So I'm happy to say that there is no application process. It's as simple as reaching out to us. You can reach out to hello@skytruth.org to go to our general inbox, or if you want to talk to one of us specifically, the secret code is that our email addresses are just our first name @skytruth.org. I'm Eric @skytruth.org. So if you'd like to talk to any of us, our inboxes are always open. We'll just speak with you about your priorities and what you're interested in, and see how we can collaborate. And I saw that there was an element to this question about educators connecting with SkyTruth, and the same goes for you, of course, but I'm also happy to say that we do love connecting with educational institutions, specifically with college campuses. And someone mentioned earlier, we have 4 very talented interns on here. So I can say that we do offer paid internships and are always happy to chat about that or receive applications from interested folks who are working on geospatial or environmental issues.
If I could add one other way to connect with SkyTruth as you're using our tools, particularly, I think we get some great ideas from students engaging with our free platforms. When you look at Cerulean, at least in the bottom right, there's a little icon that has a little speech bubble, and right from within the product, you can also send us a message if you're like, oh, I wish Cerulean did this, or how do I do this? We do have sort of a help tool, help desk that goes straight to our team. So also happy to help that way.
That is hilarious, Chris, because one of the questions was about using Cerulean and wanting to share feedback with the team. So that's perfect. And yeah, omniscient. Okay. Christian, we have a question for you. You look like you've got a lot on your plate, which I would have to agree with. What are you most excited about?
Yeah, I mean it's our whole team. So it's obviously very exciting to see all the work that everyone's doing, both on land and at sea. Personally, um, I'm very excited about SkyTruth's plans for mountaintop removal mining related work this year. I think our team is really set up to build on this legacy of creating novel data sets that support environmental justice in Central Appalachia. And I think this work that one of our scientists, Alana, is doing to identify high wall operations is just going to be a massive data set to provide to the country.
I I totally agree. I think it's really fascinating, especially as a layman, whenever you introduce some of this work, it's really fascinating. We have one for Jason, actually, and this is more broad than SkyTruth and more so about the climate tech world in general. Are there any innovations you've been tracking that you think that folks should be paying attention to?
Yeah, this actually goes back to Dan's question from earlier, and I've given the same answer for a couple of years now, but I think methane detection from space probably stands to have the biggest impact on climate by far of any tech innovation that I can think of. It's methane's one of the biggest contributors to climate change. It's also credit to Project Drawdown. This is their term, but they call it one of our climate emergency brakes, meaning that, if we fix methane leaks, we'll see pretty immediate benefits for climate. And every year for the past couple of years, there are more and more public and private sensors in space that can detect methane leaks. And this gives us a really good opportunity to monitor this problem everywhere, all the time, and hopefully shut down persistent super emitters as soon as they emerge, rather than letting them spew climate pollution to the atmosphere for a long time. There's still a ways to go before it realizes its full potential, but yeah, methane detection and monitoring.
Amazing. Well, we've answered all of the questions. Unless anyone else, feel free. We've got about a little under 15 minutes left to share any last minute questions. But otherwise, I'd love to ask the team, do you have any final words? It's okay if not, but we've had some really good questions and discussions, so I'll take the silence. Yeah. Okay, fantastic.
No. I've always got extra words.
You were the person I was thinking of. I
Well,
didn't
I'm
want to
just,
call you out.
I'm just really excited about, a couple of things. One is just the growth of the team in itself. I mean, you're seeing some new faces on this screen that weren't around a year or two ago. And again, funding permitting, and please go support SkyTruth on our website. We'll be able to continue that growth and bring in even more talented people who are often working for us at a bit of a discount over what they could be doing if, say, they got a job at Facebook or a place like that. So they're committed to this work. They're motivated by this work, and they have, high level skills and talents. And we have plans to bring on even more people to the team in 2025 to build these capabilities. So I'm hoping what we've shown you here today, this progress we're so excited about, it's setting a high bar, but by the end of 2025, we'll look back and we'll say, hey, that was just a launching pad for some really great new things. And through the work of Eric and folks on the impact team, as it takes advantage of the new tools and capabilities that the technology team is building, we'll be able to say, look at these partnerships we've developed and how we've helped these change makers around the world turbocharge their mission to accomplish biodiversity protection, to protect local communities where the health of people is being impacted by flaring and methane emission and other forms of pollution and landscape change. And I think we're going to have an even greater story to tell a year from now. So I hope you'll all come along for the ride with us. Check in on us every now and then and see how we're doing. And please give us feedback. Let us know what you think we could be doing better, and just how you think we're making progress in protecting people and the planet. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it as per usual. Yeah, it was really fantastic just having the ability to come together and celebrate everything that the team has done. As a few people have said, we are really interested in feedback. We're particularly interested in helping bring the story of the impact to life. So feel free to reach out at either hello@skytruth.org or, as Eric mentioned, our first names at the same last half. And what a gift. 10 minutes back on your Friday afternoon. Thank you all so much for spending this time with us and hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.